So if you don't know me, my name is Amanda Garland. I'm currently the president of United Francisville Civic Association. A couple of our board members could not be at this meeting. I feel like everyone goes really fun places in August. I need to do that. But we do have one other person on the board. So Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey, this is Chris. Live on 19th Street. Nice to see everyone, at least their names up here, not the videos, but looking forward to hearing from the Triangle Lot representatives tonight. So back to you, Amanda.
Thanks. I don't see their names yet, but I will send them out another email and remind them. So we can go through. I don't see Nini on either. So we'll skip over that. And if she joins, then she can do our little introduction. And well, we've got Officer O'Shea. So why don't we start with you, Officer O'Shea? Introduce yourself. And if anyone has any concerns in the city, I know I have a question for you. So.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. Great. Glad to be here. We had a great Francisville celebration festival, if you will. The Morocco family was vast. Many people showed up. We gave away 200 school bags to kids. And that was just some fundraising on them from the 9th District, from Captain Billups, Logan Square, and Spring Garden. And Francisville Civic all contributed. So many thanks to you all. It was a really calm and peaceful day. It was from 8A to 8P. I know I saw a lot of faces out there. I left around 4. I was following the shade, and then when there was none, I had to get out of there. But it was actually one of the cooler days, not one of the heat wave days. So I think we got some good info out there, and made headway with some neighbors about neighborhood issues, and all in all, a real squared away day. Summer's winding down. I know the pool in Francisville is as well. And I don't have any major issues to report in Francisville, thankfully. So I'll go ahead and field questions.
Thanks so much, Officer O'Shea. My one question is, there was a shooting over the weekend, and I wanted to know if you had any more information on that. There were shots at Poplar and Vineyard.
Yeah, I get tunnel vision sometimes, excuse me, with districts. That did stem from the other side of Poplar Street, the 22nd District. I know it's not much relevance to residents of Francisville, and it is the same division, and we are involved in the investigation. But yeah, it was 22nd District numbers, not 9th District numbers. It's an open investigation. My understanding this morning was they had a warrant served. So by tomorrow, the warrant will be served, and hopefully we can get a closeout on that. That takes months, but I can't really expound on the open investigation.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question, Officer O'Shea, about that? What is it, just because of where the address is that it gets put to that district, or was it because it crossed a certain line? How do we know which district we should expect to get information from?
Yeah, you can get it from us. That's just an internal kind of thing that we're constantly fighting. Police jargon. I have trouble sometimes. I get carried away with police jargon and numbers and coding and all that stuff. So technically it was on the other district, but it is our division. It is a border. We had many units involved in the incident. So it was really just a mistake on me not addressing it at the beginning, because it was it's a 22nd District handled job per se, but it is Central Detective, same detective division. And our tactical guys were out there that night. And they'll continue to do the investigation on the border too, but I can't really expound on details just because it's so fresh.
I have a quick question. Yes,
Sure.
I'm Kim Reese of Francisville and Friends and Morocco's RCO. I'm just giving you guys a heads up and find out who will be the contact person. We're looking to get our basketball summertime for next year. Our summertime basketball program started back up next year, starting with the smaller kids. And I just wanted to know who would I be reaching out to for like, as we start that up, who will be like patrolling or, how would we go about getting
Yeah, that's going to be
somebody out there?
Sergeant Pac McDonough and Officer Steve Williams. I will give you my email in the chat. If you want to email me, I'll connect you with them and you guys can, I think it's a good idea to get an early start on that being for next year. It's because we had some hiccups this year with the pool being opened and relative park things. So it's never too early to start. I'll give you my email in the chat. Email me. I'll connect you with the sergeant.
Okay, thank you.
And Kendall, when you have more information on that, definitely pass it my way, and then I'll pass it out in our news blast so everybody knows when those start and how that works.
No problem.
Any other questions, thoughts, comments for Officer O'Shea?
Amanda.
Well, thank you so much for joining. It's always helpful. Love the direct connection. We can ask you our questions directly without calling the station.
Yeah. When I'm able to comment on that incident that was brought up, I will email you directly and you can pass out the info.
That sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So there's a couple more people popping on. Let me see if I don't see them yet. So the next kind of UFCA stuff we have is for our committees are kind of on halt because we need more people. So we are actively recruiting. If any neighbors or people want to get more involved, we do have open board positions right now. We also have committees that we would love more involvement in. So if anyone wants to be more involved in the community in Francisville, definitely reach out to me at president@unitedfrancisville.com. And the plan is to start in-person meetings next month. So we're going to try a hybrid model. There's probably going to be some bumps in the road, but we're going to try the best we can. So we already have the space reserved at Francisville Rec Center. So next month, the second Wednesday, we will be at Francisville Rec Center. And we will have an online option as well. So it will still be the same meeting link to get in, and we're going to figure out how to do a hybrid model. Ray, who is on our board, is in charge of that. I am not as tech savvy, but we're going to make it happen so that we have the option of either coming in person so we can kind of directly interact with neighbors and get some more neighbors out who may not have internet access or the ability to come on those meetings virtually. And then if you love the convenience of coming on the meetings virtually, you can still join virtually. So the goal is to have more and more people, because right now we have 17 people on this call, and there are way more than 17 people in Francisville. And my mission is to get as many voices and as many people on these meetings so that we can hear as many voices and really kind of direct our efforts to what people want to happen in Francisville. And again, the actual action comes from people. So we need people's involvement. Otherwise, I think we're doing a decent job of communicating out information. But if we want action steps to actually happen, we need people to do that. So get the word out for these meetings. We're also going to be having a community resource fair and barbecue on August 20th at the rec center. Outside at the playground. So we're going to have tables there from Donna Bullock's office, from David O's office. We're confirming now with Darrell Clark's office. We're going to have PICO and PGW out there giving out resources. And we're going to have the the PA Dems registering people to vote. And we're going to have blood pressure screens and sugar check screens and mental health screens and wellness resources. And we're going to have food and music. And so it should be a lot of fun. And we're going to have a table about our information there too. So to try to get more voices involved on these meetings. Zoning, there's really nothing to report on zoning. We have no zoning projects today. And we will probably have one at the next meeting, and we're hoping that our zoning, we're going to have the zoning people kind of come in person, and we'll figure out how to do that in a hybrid way. And any questions on general UFCA stuff, how to get involved, upcoming things?
I have a question. This is Megan. Do you think we could get a social media post and also maybe like a poster that we could, if people are able to, kind of share with their neighbors who maybe would be interested in getting involved, like something you could print at home yourself to, you know, share with? I know a lot of us have neighbors who came to in-person meetings before COVID. And so being able to reach out to them and let them know it's happening, but just something that has kind of date and time that we could share with them.
Definitely. So my plan is to have like 1 million flyers printed out at the barbecue at the resource fair. So I'll send you that flyer that I'll have there, and I can email it out to the listserv so people can share that with neighbors. I think that's a great idea. Back in the day, I keep wanting to do just like a door-to-door handing out flyers and talking about UFCA, but I never actually have time to do that. So resource fair, tell everyone to come out. We'll have a bunch of flyers that you can hand out to neighbors who aren't able to attend to just know about UFCA and get the word out. I'm not as good with the social media stuff. I'm old and don't know how to do that. But if other people, if that is something that you are skilled in, we've had a few people wanting to help out with that, and things kind of fell through with timing and calendars and schedules and stuff. So if that is a skill of yours and you want to help out in your community, I would love someone to help out with our social media efforts. So reach out to me if you're looking for a way to get more involved. And oh, Nini, you're on. Nini, do you want to introduce yourself, and do you still want to run for one of the board positions?
I not that I don't want to introduce myself. Why I introduce myself? Okay, so I'm Nene. I've lived in the community for 31 years. And basically I'm doing what my grandmother started. So I'm going to finish it, which was be a community advocate. I'm here for the community, just so they could be aware of a lot of things that's going on. I'm just basically here to be a voice for them, for a lot of people who are afraid to speak up or who don't speak up, or I don't know. That's just basically it. I really had that much to say.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to officially run for a board position, or you no longer want to do that?
Not right now at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. So Nini's been helping out with setting up the resource fair with me. And hopefully we'll convince her eventually to actually have a seat on the board. So I just want to introduce her because she's been really helping out with that as well. And then if there's other, like I said, if other people have things that skills challenged, reach out to me and how you can help our community. Okay. I still don't see them on yet. Let me just check my email.
Hi, I have a quick question while you're looking up. I'm John, I live on 20th Street. I was wondering, how do we get access to on the listserv exactly for the information to come out?
Definitely. So if you go on our website, there's a little button that says add my name to the listserv. And so if you go on there.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep. Well, we can do our piece around the triangle lot, and hopefully they do come. I just sent a reminder email. So there's really not too much news on our end. All of the right to know requests that we sent out came back stating that there was no materials, no documents around anything on that lot really that we were looking for. And then the good news is I did get in contact with Guy, the developer, and we had a good talk, which is why I'm a little disappointed he's late. I hope he's just running late and he does join. But he was able to explain kind of the process of how they did soil testing. And he sent out a summary of the results that they've found there. And so I included that with the last kind of news blast. And they will explain it better when they come. But basically the amount that they are digging down, there was no contamination. And so it was kind of a relief to hear and a relief to see in an official environmental report. And that's why I wanted to bring them on to kind of ease anxiety and ease concerns around that lot, and to get any other questions kind of answered for continued anxiety and concerns. And kind of in line with that, we did have a community member named James Goodwin. And so he wanted to volunteer his services as our kind of ad hoc monitoring committee. And so he was able to get an air monitor. And if you were on our meeting when the Clean Air Council came out, he was discussing how the dust can't leave that site. And so the recommendation was to have air monitors that can actually track when the dust is leaving that site. And then that is something that we can actually report. And so James has an air monitor, and I'm going to put in the chat, there's actually a link where you can see the results of the air monitor, and he can introduce himself and talk a little bit more about that.
Thanks, Amanda. I have the link right here. I can put it in. So everybody should have access to that link. It's publicly available. And the air monitor in my backyard should be the one that's like the circle right in the middle. And it's called something like Westchester, Wiley Street, Francisville or something like that. And if you click on that dot, you get the actual specific information of what the air monitor is pulling in. It's currently listed as 7. If you click on through the link and then click on the dot, what does that mean? That means 7 micrograms per cubic meter of particulate matter. You don't need to know what that means. What is helpful to know is that according to the EPA, 12, once you get above 12, that's bad. People disagree with that, but we don't need to discuss that here. Anyway, so you can track that. If you click on that, you can see how the levels change over time into the past. So right now it's actually really low, and I suspect that's because the rain yesterday actually kept the dust kind of tamped down. Do people know what particulate matter is? It's just a fancy word for dust, really small dust. And it's really bad for your health. And lots of things cause it, but digging up dirt, like at a construction project, causes it too. So that's why we're concerned about particulate matter in particular. So I have that monitor. Folks are welcome to keep track of it. If you're bored at work or something, click through and it gives you something to do. I know it's been fun for me to keep track of. You can also see how other air monitors in the area look. So if that one looks really bad and the other ones in the area don't look bad, that's a cause for concern. It seems to be generally consistent with the ones that are around it, so that's good so far. So there's that. So like Amanda said, it's kind of amazing when you think about it, but this is the truth. They are not allowed to let any dust escape the lot, and they're not allowed to let any water escape the lot. So if you see either, that's against the law, and it should be noted and reported, or it can be noted and reported. So I don't know if there's really elegant way to do this, but I'm gonna, I have an extra security camera, so I have that set up monitoring the fence line. So I have that. I have the air monitor, and then I'm going to periodically take walks around the lot to look for evidence of dust escaping or water escaping. Yeah, that's right. Water source upon it. So yeah, and that's the other thing. So one of the ways you keep dust from escaping is you keep it wet to keep it in place. And so challenge is the more you keep the soil wet, that cuts down on dust, but you also increase chances of water escaping. So that's kind of the fine line they're walking. What else? Oh yeah, so I'm gonna give you my contact information. If you folks are out walking your dogs, walking your kids, out for a stroll, whatever, and you see something that's bad, so that's dust or water escaping, note the time, basically what you saw and where you saw it, and feel free to send me a note, and I'm gonna keep track of all this stuff. So I'm gonna put my contact information here. Here's my email address. And here is my phone number if you want to text me or call me. I think that covers everything. Yes. An environmental engineer would be very helpful.
You've got a helper.
Yes. So I'm an environmental attorney by training. I don't actually practice, but I actually know what fine particulate matter is and those sorts of things. So having an environmental engineer helping me out would be great. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about. Did anybody have questions? I probably don't have answers, but you're welcome to ask them anyways.
And Guy is probably on now, and I assume the environmental engineer is on as well.
I don't know if he's on. I'm on.
Okay.
He
Okay.
is coming. He said he'd be on at about 5 of.
Yeah,
So
sorry. I always kind of make up times on when things happen. So thank you for joining us.
Well, it sounds like it's the right time.
It was perfect timing. It was perfect timing. And so before we knew you were coming, and just kind of for our own kind of community watch on the project to ease anxiety, we have some near neighbors that are just going to be kind of making sure everything's going as planned. And I think that having you, Guy, and the environmental engineer answering a lot of questions, I think more of the questions are going to go towards you guys on the construction to just ease anxiety, ease concerns. And so
I don't think Carl is on. Do
okay.
you see Carl on there yet?
No, I don't see Carl on the list yet. We can stall for another couple minutes. Maybe Guy, you can talk from the developmental point of view. I know that a lot of people had questions. We did post what it's going to look like. But so Guy, do you want to introduce yourself, and then maybe Carl's joining right now. So that was the perfect amount of stalling. But maybe you both can introduce yourselves, and I'm sure there's a ton of questions, so we can kind of ease our community anxiety and concern, and make sure that we're keeping Francisville as safe and healthy as possible.
Carl, you on?
I just joined. Can you hear me?
Yes. Timing is very good. I think the other presentations and issues are past, and now it's our turn to talk a little bit about our Cameron Square project.
Certainly.
I'll talk a little bit first, and then Carl, I don't know whether you want to present something or whether you just want to answer questions. Hopefully what I say is somewhat comprehensive. Does that sound good to you?
I think that my update letter kind of summarizes everything, and if there's any questions, I'm more than willing to answer them.
Great. Tonight, my name is Guy Laren. I'm the owner of Constellar Corp., who is the buyer of Cameron Square. The project is essentially 29 single families and condos for sale and 115 apartments for rental. The site was bought about 2008 by a suburban developer who made an agreement with the city to build something similar to the 29 units plus 115. And they changed their mind about doing it, and it sat for the next 14 years. A couple of people had it under agreement, but nobody actually closed. We put it under agreement a couple of years ago during the pandemic, and then we closed a little less than a year ago. We've developed plans and submitted them to the city, and we have approved plans for the houses for sale and the apartments. I know there's a concern about environmental for a number of reasons. So I was prepared today to discuss that. And let me just talk to you about what we've done with the environmental in order to get our permissions from everyone. As I understand it, before the developer bought from the city in like 2008, 2009, 2 environmental reports were done, both of which came back that the site was within the range of healthy for development. They tried to do it themselves, then they tried to sell it, and no one was able to buy it, and no other reviews were done for the next decade. A art museum developer put it under agreement and tried to change the agreement with under which they'd been bought, and tried to make it something like 440 apartments. And he said that he had some issues with the environment, and he asked the seller to take a price reduction, and he asked the community if they would allow more units. And both the seller and the community said no. So it went back on the market, and I put it under agreement. And we did our own environmental study, the first done by Carl's company. We did about 23 borings on the site in various locations. I think there was something like 50 samples taken, and one of them came back unsafe. The others came back safe. And we were told they don't know what the reason the one was unsafe, but it could just be that the probe went down and hit an old paint can that was there. So we did a second round, another 20 some odd borings with a similar amount of samples, and everything came back clean. So in addition to our developing plans for the site, we submitted the environmental to the city, and we submitted our plans to our bank. The bank did their own private review. I believe the city does their own review, and everybody confirmed our findings. Then we got a construction loan, and the bank looked at our environmental for this second set of review, and that came back clean. So based on all those reviews and underwritings, we deemed the site clean to be developed into the 29 units for sale and 115 units for rental. The one thing I'll say about our site is we're essentially building on top of it. So there's some soil removal to put our foundations in, but we're not digging way down, and we're not removing dirt. We're essentially moving it, building the foundation, and repacking around the foundation, so that by the time we're done, much of the site will be paved and probably have less runoff and less airborne dirt than it has now with cars parking on it. As I understand, there were 2 buildings recently built directly across the street, and those, as I understand it, had no issues with their soil and with the condition. And they're not quite the size of ours, but they're similar in scope in that they're digging down and they're building units above. So that's essentially what we have. We have all clean reviews. The review of our reviews all came back clean. The reviews from 10 years ago all were clean, and we're not doing that much to the site that should create problems. The one thing that has been in the air for probably the last 3 or 4 years is that the previous developer told the community that there was some bad soil that he discovered. He took that to the community and asked for the 440 units, which was not the original agreement. He took that statement of dirty soil to the seller and he asked for a price reduction, which the seller refused. And when I put it under agreement, he called me unsolicited and said, "You have an environmental problem," to which I said, "I'm very concerned. Send me what you have and I will see what it is. Everything we've looked at looks clean." He didn't call me back. He didn't send me anything. I called him a second time. He promised it to me again. Didn't send me anything. And a week later, I called him a third time and he stopped taking my calls. So the only evidence of anything bad is the oral words of another guy who has a financial interest in creating this illusion of something wrong. If he has anything to show me, I am willing to review it and try to come up with answers. But as of now, he's disappeared. And as I understand it, he just wanted me to not buy it so he could buy it. If anybody here has something specific they know, we're all ears. We're willing to talk to you and discuss anything. But at this point, we're starting our foundations and we hope to be building. We were going to build first the units for sale and address the apartments maybe in 6 months to a year. Carl, you have anything to add to that?
Other than I'm unaware of those back discussions. I got involved in 2010 for, I believe, the people you bought it for. And the reason, in my understanding, the reason why they decided not to develop it, this is a little bit of conjecture on my part, is that they're a Chester County developer and they had a whole bunch of giant projects going on. So, you know, they focus on Chester County and decided to give this up. That's my opinion. If anybody has any questions, I'm willing to answer them.
Well, I have a
question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I think this is the hard part. Maybe if you turn your cameras on or we can go one at a time, or there, I think there's even the raise your hand feature if you can, and then I'll kind of call on people.
Raise your hand. I don't see it raised.
You don't see that one? I see Nini figured it out, but I heard Kendall's voice and I heard was it Richard's voice?
Correct.
Okay, so why don't we do Kendall, then Richard, then Nini?
Can you go ahead?
You can go ahead first, Rick, and then I'll give my little spiel.
All right, so quick. So there's a couple questions. It seems to be a lot of some wordplay going on here with the initial 2008 findings. I believe Guy. Sorry if I have your name wrong there. You said that they found it fit the parameters for being safe in 2008. Then you came back and said that it was found unsafe at one point and then safe another point. Like which is it? Your wordplay is kind of scary here. And the second thing is that the company that did the experiments on the testing on the site, is that a company that you hired, or did they come from the EPA, or how is that working there?
Okay, so first question. You think I said it was safe, then unsafe, then safe?
You said
I hope I didn't say those words because that's
Yeah,
not
you
what
did.
happened.
Yeah, that's where the question is coming from
I
because
understand. So let me tell you what did happen. In 2008, the Chester County company made an agreement with the city to buy it, and they did their own environmental. That came back safe.
no,
No,
that came back in, but you said originally that it came back, in the parameters of being safe. You never said it was safe until this third testing was done per se, most recently. So
Okay.
that's the wordplay I'm concerned about here.
all right. Well, sorry, I'm sorry you used the word play because
That's what
there's
it
no
sounds like,
intention to
bro.
hide anything. There's things in all the ground. If you went to a farm that had never been developed, you could
We're not
find.
building on the farm. We're talking about 19th and Wiley there.
Ricky,
I don't need to know about a farm.
Ricky, you asked me a question. You got to hear my answer.
All
If you
right,
don't
you-
listen to my answer, then we'll never get done.
Right, I've
Let
heard
me
your
tell you,
answer.
I'm just telling
okay.
you that the way these come back, they come back in a range. And there's a range of safe, unsafe, or sort of somewhere in between. All these have come back safe. I don't want to say there's
It's not
not a
what he said
single,
the first time.
if I tell you there's not a single chemical in the soil, I'm lying to you. There's always chemical in the soil. That's why I use the term range. But every test that I've done or was done previously, every test that has been done and has been reviewed by independent people, the banks, and the city, all have come back. They're in the safe range. That's just
That's
the
right.
language that these tests come back in. That's not me word playing. That's
Right.
the way they do these.
And Ricky, I think if you want the clarification, and I think others, it might be easier if we just put the questions in the chat and then I can go through the questions. I feel like that might be a little more organized way to do it. But I think, Ricky, what you're alluding to is the developer that presented to the community before and told us it was unsafe. And so Guy spoke to that I don't think he's going to say that, but it sounds like that developer lied to the community because he had financial interest in saying that the soil was unsafe so that he could get a better deal.
No, that's incorrect. Guy said that after the initial testing of the site where it came in, in the parameters of being safe, and then there was a second test done that came back unsafe. So he said, "Oh, it may have hit a paint can."
Oh yeah, so he did lots of samples. He did lots of samples, and the one came back unsafe. So he did further testing.
Right. So
let's not get confused around that site, and it came back safe.
Right.
I'm sorry.
So again, he's not right. This is
I did
coming
say
from
that,
another
and I
developer.
apologize.
He
That is
said that.
correct. Those are
He
my
said that.
words.
Right.
So
sorry. I hope that clarifies it. And so I'm going to move on to just other questions just in a matter of time. Kendall, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, this is like.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a little quick synopsis as I was part of the project from day one. The Hankin Group, they got the project, and basically the Hankin Group just felt like it was a little too dense for them because they wanted to be a little more upscale with their project. They wanted to sell their condos for a little more money than Francisville was yielding at the time. That's kind of what I got from that group. But also, I just wanted to add that I come from a part of Francisville where we wasn't always newly developed. So I kind of predate before we started getting really developed. So every time I came to the meeting and being involved with FNDC, it was always about the opportunity for the community from a partnership perspective as to being inclusive and being diverse. So at the table, it was an apprenticeship grant discussed because it was always employment needed for some of the residents there who pretty much, didn't come from, other means. So a lot of people that from Francisville basically came from humble means, moderate to low income. So it was apprenticeship added to that. And I think I shared the email with Guy,
Yes.
that would be Kendall Reese. And I do have some names, and I would like it, you know, for you to contact me and we follow up, because this is a good opportunity to kind of pick up where the other developer left off and make it right for the community as well as the developer partnership, because that's kind of what we were promised coming in, that it would be partnerships from diversified perspective, but also from an inclusive perspective. So that's kind of what I'm speaking on
Yeah,
today.
you're the one I emailed with before.
Correct.
Yeah, so what, just for anybody else, what we have done in the past is if there's a community group, we will ask them for local minority contractors and local, and a list of maybe laborers that may be available for work. And then we'll try our best to hire with them. Most of our subs are already set. So what we'll do is we'll have them work with the similar trades and try to bring them on a, you know, we won't give them 29 houses to build if you have an electrician, but maybe they can do a house here and then a house there, and they can work together with the guys we have. But we will try to include people from the neighborhood as best we can. And I answered you right away, and I'm happy to answer you again, you know, as this moves closer. You know, we'll work with you to try to include neighborhood people.
Thank you so much. And Kendall, in those communications, you can CC me if you want, and then I can follow up as well to make sure that the people that you're naming are kind of getting into the system. But Guy, I think that sounds like a great apprenticeship program, and it aligns with what was kind of agreed upon earlier. So I think that that's really great. I'm going to go through some of the questions just in the chat. The one question is it a slab foundation? How tall will the apartments be relative to the neighboring buildings?
I don't have all the information. I was more prepared for environmental questions.
The environmental part.
But
the slab foundation part?
I'm pretty sure it's slab foundation. Certainly on the homes it is. I don't remember if we have a floor of parking for the apartments. Can I get her email or everyone's email? And
can I say something?
Sure.
For a minute? Like it's a couple things that's bothering me. I don't know about everybody else. But I'm the type of person, I don't like to bite my tongue. So this is a couple questions I have to ask, because y'all just skip right over me. One is, I understand this project is old, right? But I'm trying to figure out, when it got to Guy or whoever the person that's doing the development, why wasn't it, and I understand it's private, but why was we given an opportunity to vote and see if this is what we wanted? Why wasn't our generation given an opportunity to say if we want this development here or not? For one, because of the view. For two, it's like every time we turn around, y'all build this out. What about building something for the community besides housing? Where is other things that what more do y'all have to offer than keep building these houses and more people around here and it's making it gentrified? What more do y'all have to offer? Like, I'm not trying to be smart, but I'm really getting tired of looking at y'all build and build and build. But what are y'all building for the community? Housing? Yeah. It's too many housing around here. It's barely any parking. What can y'all do more instead of keep building these houses? What can y'all give for the community? Not just for the children, for anybody. Like every time I turn around, it's building houses, building apartments, building this, and then they don't even be affordable. They don't even really be affordable. Like, who are y'all really building for? It's so gentrified as ever. I lived in this neighborhood all my life. I've never seen so much of this. And it's like, I'm not trying to be smart. I'm really getting tired of it.
No, Nini, I appreciate
Hold on. I'm getting tired of people saying it's nothing we can do. Stop saying it's nothing we can do. Because Nini, if everybody know about stuff, we get together as a community, like, it's just like, I'm tired. I'm sorry. I'm really getting fed up.
Nini, I understand where your frustration and anger is coming from, and you've been in the community for so long. This project was approved decades ago.
No,
so this project was approved.
I know that. You understand where I'm coming from. I get that.
And I can understand your frustration around there not being enough.
But listen, when I read it, when I sat down and read everything that went through, it did talk about low income. It did talk about certain things in there. I sat down and read it. And I screenshot it. So don't think I'm not reading and paying attention.
I'm going to turn, Nini, I know. I'm going to turn that into a question to Guy, because I think that is correct.
Well,
The low income units, are there still affordable? Is there still affordable housing within the development?
Yes. And Amanda, quickly, Guy, before you answer, Amanda, I can speak then afterward what community notifications we've had.
Sure, thank you. So Guy, do you want to speak to the low income and affordable units?
Yeah, the there are, of the 29, there are 6 affordable units being built of the 29, and the other 23 are market rate. That was essentially the agreement in 2008. And as opposed to putting all units on the site.
And then is there anything within the apartments that's affordable or at a reduced rate?
I think there's 17 apartments, but again, I don't want to say something wrong and
Right.
then mislead anyone.
So I can
Because-
also, in the notes out, I can link to the plans that actually label out. And I think that I know we're focusing more on the environmental concerns now, and I'll go through some more of the questions, but I know there is a lot of community concern around gentrification and increase in housing prices. So if there's any availability in making sure that affordable units are truly affordable, and for multi-income populations, I know that that's a huge problem that's been coming up in the community. So thank you,
Can I
Nini.
just say one more thing
understand-
to Nene, and I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate what you're, if you've been in the neighborhood for a long time, you have these concerns. This was a deal with the city in 2008, but after that, it was really a private deal. It was like somebody has a lot next to you somewhere in Francisville, and they put their lot up for sale, and it goes to sale from a private person to another private person. So that's why it had input in 2008, 2009, but there really hasn't been input since, because it's been, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just the way things are. We are putting a lot of parking in, relative to how many units there are. And each house is either gonna have 1 or 2 car parking. I'm not saying that's gonna make parking easy in the neighborhood. If somebody has a party or has guests over, you're now gonna have 2 more cars on the street. But I hear what you're saying. Some of the issues have been addressed, but this was a private sale to another private developer.
I have an environmental question if I can.
I'm gonna go through some, Mika, I'm gonna go through some of the questions in the chat first, just so that we can make it a little bit orderly and go into some sort of order, but I'll definitely come back to you.
All right, thanks, please.
So we have from Carolyn, it says, the other organizations, did they take and analyze their own samples, or did they review the study you did? Carolyn, do you wanna elaborate on that a little bit? What organizations are you referring to?
Yeah, he mentioned that there were different people that had oversight or review, like different organizations. I forget which ones exactly he said, but like the EPA and maybe the city. I don't remember who all you mentioned like reviewed your findings, but I want to know if they just looked at your report and said, yeah, this checks out, or if they took their own samples, analyzed them separately from you and said, our findings agree with your findings, and like we trust that you didn't target your sampling in a certain way or manipulate your findings.
Ouch.
Great question. Great question.
Yeah. First, let me tell you who the people that reviewed our findings. The first is the bank. We had a bank that lent us money to buy the property. They reviewed our we have to actually pay the bank to review our own findings, because they want an independent person looking at it, just as you're alluding to. Independent person. The bank doesn't want to be on the hook in the event there is an environmental problem there, because banks have been sued for that. So that bank had an own independent. I don't believe they did any more soil samples. They just paid us independent environmental company to look at our findings. Then we have a construction lender. They had their own environmental review by an independent environmental company. License and inspection also reviews your environmental. I don't know what level they do, but I'm pretty sure they do not do their own soil samples. However, all these parties have an interest in not advancing it in the event there's something wrong with it, because they're also on the hook in the event there are environmental issues. Does that answer your question?
So it sounds like they all reviewed your findings, but it doesn't sound like any of them did their own soil samples. Is that
Correct. I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Okay, so you're the only people that collected data and then other people looked at your data.
Correct.
But you
Okay.
used, but Carl is from an independent firm. He's not with the development company. He's an
No.
outside environmental.
If he misses big problems, he's in the line of fire also. He's not there to rubber stamp me. He's doing his best to
An
find out that
independent
everything's right.
environmental engineer. Yeah. Then they have a question, will you provide phase 1, phase 2, and so-called the Franklin report, which indicated high lead levels? Also, I have too many questions on this. I have environmental experience and would love to get in contact with Carl individually. Would that be an option?
Well, you're allowed to talk to him. You know, at this point, I don't really want to put my 20 some odd $1,000 in studies out for someone to try to stop my project. And we didn't find anything wrong. No one else found anything wrong. We're here to talk to you. We're available. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns, we'll try to address them. But other than that, to give out our studies I can't do that.
And then I have, how did you select the 2 to 3 samples that were selected for lab analysis as opposed to doing lab analysis on all samples? And how were the samples analyzed if not in the lab?
I'll let Carl answer that.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm a licensed professional engineer in 5 states and a licensed site remediation professional in New Jersey. So I have an ethical obligation to do things correctly. I designed the sampling program because the Franklin project found some lead in a corner of Wiley and 18th Street, but they didn't look at the rest of the site. So I did sort of targeted random sampling to investigate the soils where the buildings were going to be. And at one time, there was talk about putting an underground basin to collect stormwater and to look into those areas. So we randomly selected 23 locations, and we selected from 2 to 3 samples per boring, and we went down to 20 feet. We sent them to a PADEP certified laboratory for lead analysis, and the results were such that I presented in my report. Question?
Carl, how are they random if you previously selected them to the high lead levels in the Franklin report?
The site they were randomly selected, and since I had extra time in that day, I only was going to do 20 borings. Because I had extra time, I got my 20 borings done by the end of the 3rd day, and still had time left on the driller's clock. I went back into the Franklin area to collect some additional samples. That's why if you look at the sampling map, you'll see that the samples 23, boring number 23, goes back over into that corner.
And what were the concentrations in the Franklin report?
Off the top of my head, I don't recall them, but they were in anywhere from, I believe, below 100 to over 1,000. And I would add to you that I spoke to the PADEP Brownfields coordinator at Southeast Regional Office, and he said that concentrations of lead at 1,000 or above is not uncommon in Pennsylvania. You got to remember, or in Philadelphia. You got to remember, Philadelphia's been around a long time, right? Okay, and they use lead paint, and when buildings are demolished in the old days, they just collapse them into the foundations or into the basements. So having lead concentrations show up randomly at high levels is not uncommon.
And could you tell, for all of us that aren't environmental engineers, what exactly is the number that deems it safe?
Okay, so the state has what's known as the statewide health standards, okay? And the statewide health standard for residential exposure from 0 to 15 feet below grade is 500 micrograms per kilogram. 500 milligrams per kilogram.
Thank you. And so it sounds like there was some that was found that was over 1,000, and that's where you did more testing, and then it was found to be under 500. Is that right?
That's correct. My report found one sample at 20 feet below grade that was above the statewide health standard of 500.
Thank you for that
Yeah,
clarification.
no, very important right here.
Here,
is
Miguel,
why
I'm coming up to your question right now.
Yeah, no, but this has to do with the preparation for the the testing of the site. These guys came over unnoticed, and that place was still open where people were taking their dogs and kids over in that lot. That's bullcrap right now. I mean, they're trying to talk nice, but they're not really fine. They're not giving us more than what they were not willing to give us. That's all I want to say.
Okay, Miguel. So Miguel's question, it says, why do we have to push for these people to come talk to us after we got vocal? Would they be willing to house an air monitor inside the site until the project is done? So unfortunately, towards the second question, the air monitors have to be connected to an outlet, and they have to be connected to Wi-Fi. And the air monitors are really just seeing what leaves the site. So it wouldn't really make sense to have it on site. Air monitors are more to see if there is any dust or particles leaving the site. And in regards to the first one, I feel like I'm going to give everyone the benefit of the doubt here. And I think there was just a miscommunication between Guy and UFCA. And I don't know where the communication breakdown went or what happened or what that was about. But I am just happy now that we do have a summary and we do have them on now to answer all of your questions. The other question is, were other metals, you can tell you're an environmental person, were other metals, VOCs, CVOCs, pesticides, etc., evaluated during phase 1, 2, and the Franklin report? Carl, I bet that one's going to you.
Yeah, it is. The Franklin report did in 1992, they did a phase 1 and they recommended sampling. They did PCBs, they did VOCs, I believe they did SVOCs, and they did metals. And the only constituent that came back above the statewide health standard was lead in that one corner. They also did gamma radiation and they found nothing. The other phase 1s that were done on the property subsequent to the Franklin report also did not find any recognized environmental conditions such that additional sampling was recommended. So my investigation was to characterize lead across the site, not just the Franklin area, but across the whole site.
Thank you. Okay, so we answered that question already. How many of the 115 rentals would be affordable housing? It sounds like 17 of the rentals, but we're going to clarify that, and I'll send a link to the actual development in the notes. Are there city requirements for the percentage of affordable units? That is a great question. There are city requirements, and then if you don't do a certain number of affordable units, you do have to pay into a housing fund. So I don't know exactly offhand what that percentage is. Guy, maybe you know.
We got this permit last year, so it's under 2021 standards, and I don't believe we paid into the housing trust fund. I believe we just said we met the standards of 2021. Thank
you. And then the question is, are there basements?
Not in the single families, and I don't believe there's a basement in the multifamily.
And then the question for Miguel is, what was the aim of the donation made to the groups in this area? Why did UFCA get so little when other groups got more and aren't the ones making the decisions? So Miguel, when the community benefits agreement was made, there were no other organizations in Francisville, because we're talking about way back in 2008 when the CBA was made, when the agreement was made. And so the only organization at that time was FNDC. So the entire CBA was, the agreement was with FNDC at that time. So when there were more organizations, it was decided to give portions of them to other organizations, but I don't know how those numbers got agreed to. Guy, I don't know what you can speak to or cannot speak to in terms of the CBA agreement.
Well, the original agreement, I guess in 08 or 09, something like that, was for the developer to donate $250,000 to renovate the park. And what happened was the park got renovated over time. So I guess we could have asked not to have any donation, but we said we'll give it to the community. And since there was some disagreement as to who got what, we just sort of said, look, you guys work it out amongst yourselves, and then we'll still offer the 250. That way, it wasn't our decision. It was worked out among the organizations.
I don't know how much we worked out. It was more of a FNTC designated who got what.
You asked me for the details.
Yep.
If you want to know the politics, we should go off the record.
That's true.
And
So
better
the
not.
next question is, what is considered to be affordable at this point? Carolyn, that is an excellent question. In my mind, it's not truly affordable, but it's a city standard, and I don't know what the 2022 regulation is around what is affordable. But I can
There's
look
some calculation that I don't have off the top of my head. They do average mean income for an area. I don't know how wide or skinny that is, but it's a government calculation. And we're doing it on the first for the sales. So it's some multiple of this AMI, this average mean income, and that arrives at a sales price. And you can't sell it above that. You can sell below that. I don't have it on the top of my head. And I'm not even sure the AMI is determined for this until we get a little further along.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's decided once it's completed or once they're actually
Something like that, yeah.
So I apologize, Carolyn. I can look into it for what it is now, but I don't know when they designate when it is affordable and what that rate will be then. Nini, I feel you. It says, I feel like we should have had someone come out and test it ourselves. I would have loved that. We looked into that, but it is a private lot, so we cannot go onto a private lot and take samples. What does refusal location mean? Were you unable to get the auger to the proper depth? I feel this one is for you, Carl, because I don't know what the words are.
I can answer that. Yes, that is exactly correct. We tried to get to our target depth of up to 20 feet below grade, but we kept on hitting stuff, and it was probably the concrete leftover from when the site was raised years and years ago. So we kept on moving and moving and moving until we found a spot. All the other ones were randomly selected, but when we got to that spot and couldn't get to where we wanted to go, we moved. And then we moved, then we moved, and then we moved, and then we got through.
Thank you. The next one is the disturbing minimally during the construction process is a myth. How are they going to run their sewer lines above ground? Sidewalks will cover the old dirt. That sounds funny too. So I think the question is asking all the things that need to go underground. How are they going underground with minimal dirt moving?
All right, you're getting, again, construction questions. I believe we're bringing the utilities in the back, and then they're just getting fed to each house. They're not coming in from the street. So there's sort of one line running in, and I guess the water line running in with that. So that's where everything's coming there. There's one feed for each. That all the houses are getting one feed through the parking, not 29 of them from the street.
And then the next one is more of a comment, but I think Carl, maybe you can speak on this. Ricky says, unsafe soil doesn't miraculously become safe overnight. We, the community, need to get an independent environmental team out to this site. I'd also like to hear from this Chester County developer who decided not to build there originally. So I'm wondering if you, Carl, if you could speak to if there is kind of known that at one time historically there was contamination. How does contamination disappear?
So contamination from organic compounds will degrade with time. There are bugs in the soil that will eat it up. Even if it's really bad stuff, it just takes longer to do it. Metals, on the other hand, do not decompose. So, and this comment about being safe or unsafe is the wrong way to describe it. it meets the PADEP's statewide health standards. There's a number that has to be met. If it's below that number, it's considered no risk to health, residential or residential health. Does that answer the question, or did I get off topic here?
So I think you did help out with that. Over time, certain contamination does dissipate. So over time, certain contamination disappears. Does lead disappear over time? It sounds like that would be a metal, right? So what you're saying is lead does not disappear over time?
Lead is a metal, and when it's in soil, you don't expect it to disappear. It doesn't disappear, but it can change form. It can turn into oxides, which are less mobile or more mobile than the others. But for all intents and purposes, metals do not decompose.
Okay, so they don't decompose, but they may change form, which could be safer, it sounds like.
It's unlikely. You have to have the right conditions to do that. So everybody should take from this that metals don't decompose with time.
So we should take that metals don't decompose, and the lead that was there is apparently at safe levels, or the testing that you're doing is not coming back with lead exposure above the recommended health levels.
Okay, so the samples that were collected in the residential intervals 0 to 15 feet below grade were not above the Pennsylvania's Department of Environmental Protection statewide health standards.
Thank you. The next question is, if the phase 1, 2, and Franklin report did not report any issues, would they be willing to share them?
Well, I thought we answered that already. We don't want to share them.
Okay, so it sounds like we can't share the reports will not be able to be shared. What SE, SC, and dust suppression controls are planned?
Soil erosion and sediment control. They're going to be governed by the city. So whatever the city requires, I'm sure the construction people have to do it. I don't know what they are, but I'm sure they're set in stone.
Do you know that the department in the city that regulates that or oversees that?
Off the top of my head, I do not, but I'm sure Guy could look into it. It could be, you know, I would expect it to be the construction department.
I think it's our site inspector. We'll
Okay.
be checking on that.
Okay, thank you. And then it says that the lead levels in this report are actually surprisingly low given the rumors. Would they be willing to continue to be transparent given the low level? Okay, the answer was no, we cannot release the reports. If I may, can I speak to that?
I would like to add, it's exactly right, rumors. The sampling was pretty exhaustive. It was more sampling than I normally do at sites to find out if there's contamination there. And I'm comfortable that the data speaks for itself. The levels are within the expected range of normal Pennsylvania soils.
Thank you. And then Miguel is asking about the park being renovated. Actually, I remember when the playground was renovated, but we are still holding off the amount of money that we got the CBA for if there's anything specific that people do want done in the playground. And actually right now the entire basketball court is getting renovated as well. And I'm looking into more, there was a block grant from the state to do some upgrades on the playground as well, even without CBA money whatsoever. So I will be looking more into what exactly those changes are. We gave feedback and when the Morocco's group met with Darryl Clark. And so we gave some feedback what the community wanted changed in the playground and to where that block grant should go to. But I am looking into getting more detailed explanation on what is actually being done with the block grant that was given to the park. Previous discussion was a 20-foot by 20-foot area would be treated. Where is that area and what is that treatment?
Carl?
Carl knows nothing about 20 by 20 foot treatment.
So I think when the presentation, the project did come to us in 2021 when they discussed the samples at first. And I think it was probably the one sample that came back positive, and they discussed that area. And I think Guy, you had mentioned this before, that area is actually, there's no construction or digging being done on that one area. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
that sample was collected at 19.5 to 20 feet below grade.
Right. And I
And
believe,
there is no building above that, correct?
yeah. So I think the answer to your question is that that area, I believe, Guy, what you told me is that's in the courtyard area. And so
Correct.
there will be no construction on that area.
Correct.
And then follow up for refusal locations. That's a fairly large area of the site. Why don't you take a shallower sample in the area to make sure contamination wasn't perched on the compacted layer?
Well, my answer would be is we did random samples across the site. So just moving a little bit to the right and left to get to our depth. And I don't remember off the top of my head, but typically I said we would collect 2 or 3 samples from each boring. So there, I'm talking refusal was like 4 feet below grade. And eventually that top of that site's going to be shaved off for construction. So we were more interested in the lower levels of the soil column.
But Carl, each boring has several layers in it. Is that correct?
Samples were collected at 2 to 3 intervals, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I
I
think
hope
that
that
answers
answers
your
your
question,
question.
Carolyn. Thank you. Yeah, so that when you take a boring, it sounds like you're going down and you're taking samples at different intervals. So it's not that
Correct.
all the samples are from 20 feet down.
Correct.
You're actually
Exactly.
getting samples from various levels as you go down.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
And
Can I
then,
jump in?
yeah, go ahead, Carolyn. You want to clarify?
Yeah. So I'm looking at the map here, and it looks like you basically just completely didn't take any sampling in that area that is sort of like around the zoning label in the center of the site. So if you're removing that soil, is that, you say you're taking it off, does that mean that you are going to be disturbing soil that you didn't test and avoided?
We didn't avoid anything. This is a
Well,
random sampling event, and statistically, the number of samples there provides a good distribution and a good characterization of the site. That's what we did, was a site characterization for lead.
Right. I mean, but I'm looking at the map here, and where you ultimately ended up with sample 10 is not really close to where you were trying to get those borings in, which is close to where the high level of lead was found. So I'm curious why you didn't try to keep more in the area that is closer
Carolyn,
to that.
the reason is it's random. It really doesn't matter when you collect enough samples randomly. It characterizes the site. Again, all those little red X's in there is because the probe couldn't get down more than about 4 feet. So it didn't serve the purpose, and we just had to move on to collect a sample. It's not we're trying to avoid anything. It's a random selected and to characterize the site.
For
Yeah, I
us
mean,
non-environmental people, what would cause a probe not to be able to go down below 4 feet?
I mentioned it, concrete. You hit a big old piece of concrete.
Okay.
You hit a big old piece of rock. You hit a big old piece of concreted soil. There's soils that get so hard and compacted naturally that the equipment that we had on site didn't have enough power to go through it, because the equipment pounds a tube down through 4 feet. You take it out, you put a tube back in, push it down another 4 feet, and keep doing that to 20 feet.
Carl, so was it a geoprobe?
Yes, sir.
It's pretty common for refusal.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I've done soil samples, so that's why I'm asking these questions. And when I was working, we would have taken a 4-foot sample in that area, since a lot of the reason that you're getting lead, based on what you've said, is from old demolitions, and this might suggest that you have an old foundation from a demolition left behind, which would then translate to a higher possibility of having lead collected at that area.
No argument.
All right.
Okay. The next question is, will Marathon be overseeing this construction operation? If not, who is the construction manager for the site? It sounds like it's going to be the guy. You can answer that question.
Yeah, we're hiring a general contractor to do it. At this point, it looks like it's going to be a Philadelphia company called Weaverson and Sons, and US Construction. They've done a whole number of projects. But I don't think Marathon's not going to be involved with the construction.
Marathon does not do construction oversight. If there was environmental sampling and we are asked to do that, we could do that.
Thank you. And the next one is, will the construction operators have 40-hour HAZWOPER training? I don't know if that's how you say it.
That's how you say it.
Well, everyone has to have their OSHA cards and that sort of thing, if that's what you're talking about.
It's an additional environmental training that is required for environmental sites.
Whatever.
So I feel like that would be a question for the construction,
exactly.
for the people doing the construction. So it sounds like once that company is hired, that would be a question that would be relayed to them, I assume.
Exactly.
Is that something that we could advocate for as a community, that whatever construction company you use has that training?
I personally don't know what it is, but if it's required, certainly they'll already have that. I mean, the city will require it. If it's optional, then somebody send me what it is and I'll run it by them.
So it sounds like whoever asked that question, send that to me what it is, and I'm happy to pass that on to Guy. So when someone is hired, they can ask for them to have that training. Was TCLP or SPLP sampling performed?
We selected, yes, we selected the 3 highest samples with lead concentrations, ran SPLP, and one of the 3 failed SPLP. And whoever asked this question obviously understands this. The SPLP analysis was not linear. In other words, the sample with the highest concentration didn't produce the highest leachate. So again, that speaks to the different forms of lead being more soluble than others when SPLP is done.
Can you translate what that would mean for the common person on what those results showed?
SPLP is synthetic precipitate leaching procedure, where they simulate acid rain going through the soil to see if the lead that's bound up in the soil will dissolve in the acidified water and leach into the groundwater.
And so it's found that it won't.
My analysis found that it can, but there's also, the state has a buffer distance between the contamination and the top of the groundwater. And the groundwater at this site from a previous geotechnical boring shows that groundwater is like 18 to 20 feet below grade. So if the soil is up above 10 feet above that, it's not an issue. It won't leach down into the groundwater. And as I had mentioned earlier, that the 3 samples that I collected and analyzed for SPLP was not linear.
And non-linear means?
Meaning the sample with the highest lead concentration didn't produce the leachate with the highest lead concentration.
Okay. And then what depth will the excavations be performed? How much material is expected to be shipped off-site and disposed of?
I believe there's very little getting shipped off-site. It's sort of getting moved and then moved back once the foundations are poured.
Thank you. And then this is somewhat environmental related, but not to the soil testing. What is the trash management plan for apartment residents? Will dumpsters be exposed to the street or maintained in the internal courtyard or inside the building? I assume this is in the plans if you do not have the answer.
I don't know the answer. I believe it's inside the parking area. There's designated trash area inside the building. I don't believe it's outside, but again, I'm not trying to mislead anyone.
Thank you. Miguel's question is around the flyers from the Clean Air Council. I included them in the past news blasts to the listserv. I'm happy to send them out again with our next meeting notes. And then how can we get an air monitor? If you're a near neighbor to the site, we can help supply you with a limited amount of air monitors. So if you are a near neighbor to the site, definitely reach out to me and we can talk about getting you an air monitor. It would be on loan, and our thought for UFCA is that we could use these for other projects that maybe residents are concerned about or have anxiety around. And so during project lengths, you can have the air monitor, you would return them to us. And then if there is a project in the future where we have concerns about it, we can use those air monitors again. Follow up to SESC and dust suppression. Why are operations occurring without required 7-day notice, no SESC controls, and minimal dust suppression?
Can I get an answer to that and get back to you?
Guy will get an answer to that and get back to us. If they have not determined a general contractor who is on site performing work, is there a current construction manager that we can contact?
I will get you someone to contact.
Thank you. Rochelle, yes, you're a near neighbor. I'm happy to talk with you about getting an air monitor. Have they performed any baseline lead sampling outside the property?
It's private property. You can't do it without permission, and I saw no reason to sample outside the property. It wasn't part of the scope that we were interested in looking at.
Carl, would the two buildings built across the street have been required to do that kind of testing?
I don't know for sure. The reason why you did the testing is because of the Franklin report. It was a larger project and you wanted to be assured that you weren't buying an environmental problem. And the only issue that showed up in the previous phase ones and the Franklin report was a lead issue. So you hired me to do a characterization of lead across the entire site.
But the other multi-units would not have had to have done it. We don't know for sure
if
they came back.
If their lenders didn't require it, I'm sure they didn't do it.
Okay.
And then Miguel's question is feeling like there's misleading information because of the volume of soil being displaced by concrete pouring usually doubles in size when it is excavated. Miguel, do you want to clarify that question? Is there the question in there? I'm assuming what the question is that what we're saying is that the dirt would be kind of like reused in other places, and it feels like that's impossible because when you dig up dirt, where is it going to go? Is that the question?
Yeah, well, I just want to clarify it because I feel like we're being pushed to, and being treated like we don't know anything. I mean, this guy knows that when they're going to be digging out for foundations, usually the amount of soil that they're going to be getting out is going to be double in volume. I don't know what he's trying to say by minimally. I mean, he continues to say that, just like the first guy was asking him, he plays with words and he thinks that we don't care about what he's doing. I don't think he understands that we are very concerned about our health, and he's treating us as we were joking. This is disgusting.
Miguel, I really hope that him being here and Carl being here is a testament to the fact that he does care. I really did appreciate getting the summary report and them being here to answer all of the questions. And it kind of goes into the next question that's on there of outstanding items. This meeting was recorded. And so this meeting is recorded, and we do have a secretary that's going to go through and write notes from the meeting, and all of the things that we say we're going to get back to on. I will definitely email Guy a list of those items, and I will report back to the community on the answers to those questions.
Great. Thank you very much.
And then I have what air monitoring are they performing outside of the neighborhood monitoring? Can you clarify the question on who is they?
Are they performing any air monitoring in addition to our neighborhood monitoring?
So
I don't believe we have any scheduled. I'm happy to talk to you about it.
So it's not, I mean, the other positive we have in the community is that it sounds like we have a lot of people that are really experts in this area, which I think is really great. And so I would love you guys to combine forces and come up with questions, and I can direct those questions and make sure that the development is up to code and everyone's doing what they should be doing. So Carolyn, we did get to that they don't have, that Guy will get back to us with the name of the contractor who is currently there. And when the GC is determined, they will give that information as well.
Yes.
I somehow got through all of the chat questions. I know there's a lot of still anxiety. I'm really hoping that just bringing them on to answer questions, half the stuff went over my head a little bit. I tried to have people define what they were discussing when they got in the weeds of environmental testing. I will get back to Guy with all of the questions, outstanding questions that he says that he will come back to us with answers on, and I will give that to everyone within the meeting notes when I send them out. Does anybody have any other questions or thoughts or still concerns or other questions they want to be on this recorded meeting so that we can follow up about with the environmental engineer and with the developer? And Nini, I did not mean to kind of like oversight the discussion of wanting more things for the kids in the community. I 100% agree. And the want for more low income and affordable housing, I again 100% agree. I'm wondering if there's ways that we can advocate within our city council and other ways for definitely for future developments. And I don't know what more you guys can do to ensure that the development that is being done, that the affordable units are truly affordable. And who makes that decision on what rates are for the project that you're developing? Because I know that is like a concern coming up a lot in the community.
Was that a question?
Ish.
How
So
do
is there
we-
any way to make sure that some of those units, it sounds like they are claimed affordable, are there ways to make it even more affordable, like even lower than what the city would define as affordable, so that it would be more for like a low income resident as opposed to an affordable kind of median income resident?
It gets hard to change our project too much. We are required to, we're overseen by the city for everything, and we've deemed affordable and whatever standards were required by the city. So we will adhere to those. It'd be hard at this point to change the whole nature of the project. I'm happy to talk to anybody. You know, we work with Penny. Ruben apparently calls me periodically. I'll talk to anybody. That project is somewhat determined over the last 2 years. So I don't know how much we can make changes in it, but
are there, when the project is confirmed, right, not making more units affordable, but the ones that are deemed affordable already? I don't think there's any kind of like city ordinance that you can't make them even more affordable than what the city states is affordable.
It depends who comes to us to rent.
Right.
You know, we'll advertise them as affordable. The rents are reduced from market rents, and those are again within a city standard, and we'll adhere to all those. If somebody came to us that we deemed a good tenant and they didn't meet the standards and were even lower, we would rent to them. I mean, there's no reason we would not.
Okay, we have it here recorded that if there's someone that wants to live there for below rent and they are a good tenant, you may still be considered.
Send them our way.
Let me just make sure there were a couple more guys saying he's willing to talk. It says, Guy is saying he is willing to talk to individuals. How can we make that happen? Guy, you let me know what makes the most sense if certain individuals want to directly speak to you.
Yeah, is there a way to send the questions to to the UFCA. And if I can't answer them by email, then maybe we sit down for a coffee. It's just, you know, I know you have valid questions. Hopefully I can answer them easily.
I think that makes sense. So you can direct your questions to me at president@unitedfrancisville.com, and I will relay those questions to Guy, and I will let you guys know the answers to those questions. And then if it needs to be more of a discussion, then I can connect you directly, and individuals can talk one-on-one, it sounds like, for coffee. Guy mentioned there being less runoff after the project is completed. Are there rain basins planned to hold first flush from storms?
There is a rain basin planned for the site. And then what now hits the ground and goes whichever way it goes will now go with the ones under the buildings will go into the stormwater system. So you've got a stormwater catch and you've got the water running into the city stormwater system.
Thank you. And just for a matter of time, we did go a little bit over because I wanted to make sure all the questions were answered that were in the chat. But I really want to thank again, you, Guy and Carl, for coming out to answering our questions. And
Sure, thank you.
Anyone in the community, please email me. I will put it in the chat again, and president@unitedfrancisville.com. And if you have any more questions that come up, let me know. I will pass them along. And in the meeting notes, I will address them all. And this meeting is recorded and we will post it on our website, and I will post it in the meeting notes so that if your neighbors or any neighbors weren't able to attend, they can always watch this video, and I'm happy to take their questions too and relay them on as well. And then just as a reminder, our next meeting will be in person. It will be at the Francisville Rec Center, second Wednesday of September, which would be September 14th. So September 14th at the Francisville Playground inside the Rec Center, we'll have our meeting. There will be a virtual option at the same link. And then please, please, please tell all of your neighbors about, we're having a resource fair at the Rec Center on the 20th. Please come out. We'll have some city representatives there, which I think will go with Nini, your concerns. A lot more advocacy can go through them around more things in our neighborhood and what we really want in our neighborhood. And we'll have flyers there to pass out your neighbors to have more neighbors coming to our meetings. So I want to thank everybody for coming, and thank you, Guy and Carl, and thank you neighbors for asking such great questions, especially you environmental neighbors, those really specifics that are now recorded that other environmental experts can listen to. So thank you so much for coming out, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you very much.